Today, we're going to look at Master of Reality by Black Sabbath, and we're going to try and figure out what's with all the coughing. So when I was a kid, I bought this album and I put it on. I was a little kid, and I couldn't figure out what's up with the coughing and what the heck is a sweet leaf? Well, it didn't take me very long to figure it out, but that's a whole different video. So this is actually the third album from Black Sabbath. The first one was the self-titled debut album with the scary cover. The second album was Paranoid. The album was released in July of 1971, just 6 months after the release of Paranoid. The album was certified gold within 6 months. It went on to double platinum status. It reached number 8 on the Billboard Top 200. And in 2003, Rolling Stone magazine named it number 300 of the 500 most influential and important records of history. So, what's with all the coughing? So the story goes that Tony Iommi was in the studio and he was doing some acoustical work for some of the slower songs we'll talk about in just a minute. Ozzy takes this guy a humongous joint. Iommi tries to smoke it and ends up having a coughing attack. Part of that coughing attack is used at the start of Sweet Leaf. All these years, I thought it was Ozzy, and it was really Tony Iommi. So let's take a look at the track listing. Side 1 starts out with the famous Sweet Leaf and the cough we talked about, followed by After Forever, which is another heavy metal, totally get into the trance type rock and roll song, followed by an instrumental called Embryo, which it seems like it has violins. It's very kind of classical, and it feeds in effortlessly into Children of the Grave, one of the most iconic songs from this album. Side 2 starts out with an instrumental called Orchid, followed by Lord of this World, another iconic song. This album just keeps having them. Followed by an instrumental called, well, actually it's not instrumental. It's just a very slow ballad with a mumbling Ozzy called Solitude, which leads into the final song on the album, Into the Void. Into the Void is one of those songs that, kind of like Freebird, where I would play it over and over and over and over as a kid. So let's summarize here. What do I think of the album? I think it truly is one of the first heavy metal albums of all time. I think the album is extremely influential on heavy metal to this day. So where does that leave us? 2 thumbs up. I think the album rocks. I love it. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. If you're collecting any kind of metal, you need this album. If you've never heard this album, crank it up.